let's run with this for just a moment if you're okay with it. I hate open-ended questions, so I'll just answer my question and then I'll get your feedback. What is going on with the Pro Circuit bikes and their Holeshot devices not letting go? And then same thing with Deegan, and then same thing with was it Moseman? It was one. No, it was I think it was Anstey. That's two different bikes that they're coming in the first turn and they're slamming their front wheel down. We know that that's what took out Kitchen in round one.
Yeah, I know. I think some of my videos and analytics have saved that. Like, this was the first weekend I saw guys with no start blocks, and honestly, I want to look to see Tomac to see if he had like a lowering kit on the shock or something, because he was almost flat footed. And I know Tomac is about as tall as I am, and there's no way that I'm flat footed on a 450
right
sitting there, so that's the next thing I kind of want to look at is like, what the hell's going on there? Because Kenny also didn't have blocks. And talking with Mitch, they have lowered their Holeshot button by like 2.5 inches compared to where they've usually had it. Like, if you go buy a Holeshot button, they've got a hey, this is where we think you should put it. And these guys move it in quite a bit lower. And I've asked some of the mechanics, I'm like, is this a special plastic? I know this sounds ridiculous, but is it a special plastic? Because like, I've had issues when I was racing that it would rip it out. It would literally rip it out of the fork guard.
Yeah.
And they tell me, no, it's all stock and whatnot. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is an Acerbi sponsorship. So I will believe you, but also at the same time, I will question what you're telling me, because the amount of tension that is on those fork guards should rip it completely out. And with how stiff that suspension is, it's a hardtail at that point. That's why Levi has fucked himself over a couple times.
That one video where you showed, I think it was KTM, wasn't it? That they actually had a device to pull it down. It was so much load on that front end.
Yeah, and Cowie's got it and everything. And the chat, Cole is saying rear Holeshot. Yeah, I think some of the teams might be testing that, because how low the bikes are sitting, if it makes sense, you wouldn't need starting blocks. Like, because originally, let's say this, I remember having starting blocks. They're not new. I remember having starting blocks on my 85, my KX85, but that's because I was 11 years old and I really felt I fit a 65. I didn't fit an 85. I literally couldn't stand without starting blocks. So that was like the whole reason behind starting blocks.
Which I always thought was funny that dads would do that, because then you go down on the track and you can't get on the bike and start the damn thing because you have to lean it against a tree. I always thought that was funny.
But the point is like, you're not prepared for a mistake to happen. You're prepared to win the race and then have to just come off the finish line and like coast into dad so that he can so he can get off the bike. But
when you look at all the analytics that you're bringing in, and we can't argue with the fact, right? We're how many rounds in? 5 rounds in?
Yeah. So answering this, coach, 007 says, cool name, by the way. He says, are the whole Holeshot devices failing, or are they testing the limits going too low? They're not. It's a little bit of both. The Supercross suspension on those bikes are so stiff, you can barely push it down. So that's the limiting factor number one, that's having them like not unclick. Number two, they are going too low. So you put those two things together and you need a tremendous amount of inertia and force to unlock them to where it's
right, Johnny. I need your professional opinion, because I've never raced pro like you have. Where in the straightaway from the gate dropping, getting to the first turn, are they expecting there to be enough compression to even get that to release? Like you said,
it should naturally slamming on the front brake going into the first turn.
But not if you're pulling it down an additional 2 inches to where there's so much tension on it. There's nothing that's enough to get that to release. Now, again, I'm not a factory mechanic. I'm not doubting anybody that's out there that is. I just don't understand it. It put Levi Kitchen on the ground and out of the first round because it didn't release. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of stuff that I think that you're always good at bringing out. Now, if somebody sees that, go ahead,
Well, and
finish your thought.
possibly these guys are really good, like to me, if I'm being analytical and I'm telling my rider, I'm like, hey, we have your hole shot button an inch lower than what it should be. So
Mhm.
therefore, don't even fucking try to start on the outside. Because if you
Right.
start on the outside, you can get away with a little bit of brake, then a whole lot of coast to come around because you're going to come in
Mhm.
real fast at a diagonal area. You don't need a you don't need to be slamming on the brakes in a straight line. So I'd
Yeah.
be telling my rider like, "Hey, we're fucked if you have to start on the outside. You have to start
Mhm.
essentially straight to the 180. So you have to
I
be
can't
way on the
imagine.
inside and that's why
Think
I don't
about.
like having the whole shot devices and I got a lot of information that I haven't released yet about some of the start maps and things of that nature because traction control is illegal, but then everyone is hiding their start maps. Like what I've noticed is if you look at like typically on a handlebar, we go by motorcycles, right? And you've got like usually two maps, aggressive map, non-aggressive map, and then like a start map, right? And then on some bikes you have like a traction control that kind of limits the aggressive and retards the lower whatever. So I'm digressing. But anyway, you have a start map and usually that start map will start blinking so that you know you're on that map. But if you notice about the Kawasaki guys, they look like they are grabbing like a petcock. And Jason Lawrence actually told me like, "Hey Johnny, you need to look at this." He randomly texted me. He's like, "Hey, you need to look at this." And so I was like, okay, I need to start looking a little bit more in depth than that. And so on the Kawasaki's, their button is underneath the shroud
Mm.
to turn on the start map. So there won't be anything showing. And then on the Huskies, theirs is right above like the radiator cap. So it is not on the handlebar. It is on here. So the rider can look down and can see that they've got the start map on, but nobody else can, which is interesting why they're trying to hide it.
Mhm. Well, and let's take this a step further. We've had, Max Volan failed a sound test, and we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago.
I
Like, I don't
talked
even
to him
underst
and I got his answer, coach.
Yeah. No, I liked what
And
he said. "I worked so hard, and they took the points right away." No, I've watched most of your videos that were
mm,
out there, but it goes back to what you said. If traction control is illegal and they're inspecting these bikes, it's not like you can't see these in plain daylight, and yet they don't seem to get caught, but yet we have inspections before, during, and after the race, and we get popped for sound, but we don't get popped for traction control. How does that work?
well, I talked to a couple privateers. I talked to the next level guys, and because they were getting popped for sound too,
Mhm.
and um, they're like, "Dude, it's coming from my airbox. Like all the
Mhm.
sound is coming from my airbox." And so the interesting thing with sound is like, how do you be strict, but also semi lenient because conditions aren't always the same. You're outside, sound bounces off the walls if you're not testing in the same area, which they are, but
Yeah.
how do you make sure that like the pipe isn't just a half an inch tilted one way so sound is going here? Is there anything behind it that it's bouncing off of? And like for these guys at next level, they would pass sound if they covered up the airbox. If they
Yeah, I was
taped
gonna
over
say
the airbox.
that's the old adage, right? Stuff the mechanics rag in there. Plus you have humidity differences at night
Mhm.
compared to the morning.
But
There's
what
a lot of
Voland
things.
was telling me was the muffler packing is because from the start of the day, they had a full muffler packing. And like,
Mhm.
truthfully, I only changed my muffler packing like 6 months, if unless I just bought a new pipe or something.
Yeah.
But that wasn't one of the things that it was like, oh, just after an hour of riding, I need to change the muffler packing. But anyway, they were saying that the muffler was burning the packaging between race 1 to race 3, and that's why they failed sound. And it's like, okay, I believe it, but then also, damn, you're talking about like splitting hairs by
Mhm.
the amount of muffler packing that gets burnt. And then talking with some other factory teams, they kind of were calling it BS, right?
Mhm.
Because they were like, our bikes have had the same pipes for the last 6 months, and we're not failing sound. So it was interesting where it's
Who
like
was saying that? Who
some of
was saying
the
that?
Honda guys were saying it.
So here's what I don't understand. If you're looking at, you have a sound test in the morning, correct? Again, I don't know the process. I haven't been there.
Correct. And then they'll randomly sometimes pick guys after qualifying, and
Okay.
then they
And then
always pick
after,
the 3 bikes that win or on the podium, they immediately have to go to sound right after the race. But qualifying, they'll randomly pick, and then at the morning, they have to get a sticker and something written on the pipe saying that they passed in the morning.
see, because this is where I go back to what Real JD said. We still haven't gotten an explanation as to why they even test for sound. Now, if we get an engineer on here that says, hey, look, if I decrease that packing by 0.2%, I'm going to gain 3 horsepower. I'm totally random numbers here. I can understand that, but that's like I said to you a couple of weeks ago. We put this where we race these motorcycles. We have monster trucks running straight headers. It can't be a sound worried about the environmental type crap, is it? I mean, I don't I don't understand the purpose of sound checks at a supercross race. We're not in the local state park that we need to have, spark arresters and certain sound points when you're going to
Well,
have
I mean, things do get crazy loud in the stadium, and if you have little
compared
kids
to a
in there,
monster truck. Compared
yeah.
to a monster truck is 10 times more deafening.
But then
Just one
also,
truck.
if you're trying to keep like rules to like keep things somewhat on the production level,
Yeah, but now you're joking because these rules don't exist. They're suggestions. We both know this.
well, and also if let's just say tires can be, because I've been keep asking, like, I love the Dunlop guys. The Dunlop guys are
Mhm.
awesome. If you go check out that video, that's nice. But I talked to the mechanics, and I'm like, guys, what's the difference between your spec tire, between the A and B? Like, can I get a compound breakdown? You're telling me that the side walls are different compound than the center wall. And can I get like a real breakdown? Because you're telling me, from what I found out, that you can run 15 psi in these damn things, which to me, that
That
seems
was
like ice
crazy.
skating around. But
Yep.
because of the amount of rubber or something on there, they're
Compound.
so thin that they're allowed to do that. Like, it's crazy that those tires are that more factory unobtainium, which tells me that, you mean to tell me that Mitch with his pro circuit pipes are probably different pipes than what they're selling to the
Right.
privateer, and it
Yeah.
goes on and on from there.
Well, you think about the fact that, was it Mitch Payton originally built the Star Yamaha motors?
Mm-hmm.